viewers, welcome to the Womanpreneur Show. Today we have one of the co-founders of Chezuba. She's Adela Strakova. Welcome to the show, Adela.
Hi, Arushi. Thanks a lot.
So we've already covered a lot about Chezuba. We have hosted Sukhendra earlier on our show, and we are going to link that video down below for you. So Adela, I wanted you to come to know more about you as a womanpreneur. So let us start by taking you back to your childhood. What were those formative years when it transpired into today when you're an entrepreneur? And probably then I want you to talk about your life before Chezuba happened.
Sure, Arushi. So that would be a long journey if I have to start with my childhood. But probably, first of all, I want to say that I've never dreamed of being an entrepreneur. So that was not something that I always aspired to. So I'm just an entrepreneur by chance. It just happened to me. As a little kid, I was dancing a lot. So I wanted to be a dancer. And that dancing took me places. So maybe that's how my journey already started when I was really little, because we were traveling with my dancing group a lot. And then I explored the world, explored different cultures. And I ended up studying Chinese for my major. And then, I spent some years in China. I spent some years in Taiwan as part of my professional career. And that's where in Taiwan the connection with Chezuba started. So my background is, as I said, it's Chinese language and arts. I have two majors. So before Chezuba, I had no business education or any experience in running a business. What was my core work was, organizing cultural events and translations. So when I was in Taiwan, and I ran into my first Indian friend, Sukhendra. So we became friends. And at the point of time when he was in Taiwan, he was already talking about being an entrepreneur. I knew that it was his dream for a long time, but we were just friends. We were not talking business at that time. And I was working in the embassy in Taiwan. But probably what brought me to Chezuba or being an entrepreneur is that I always, with my work, I always wanted to make some difference. And I think that was the very important aspect of or character of any entrepreneur, that they want to make some big difference, right? If you care about your work and whether you're really making a change with your work every day, it's very hard to do it in a corporate world, in a huge companies. So you either have to run your own little business, or you have to have some profession as doctor or nurse or psychologist, right? So I think that's where I got connected to Chezuba. So I was talking about how I met Sukhendra. And when he was talking about his business idea with me, I was still in Taiwan. He went to India. And he was talking about a very interesting vision of the company he wants to set up. It was not directly about volunteering per se, but it was about, enabling people to create difference and to connect different countries. Because there's a huge diversity in the world and huge inequalities. Right, and in India is even present in one country, but if you're living in Europe, you don't see that diversity or different, economical, social, or racial backgrounds in a small space. So I think that idea of balancing the world out with connecting people who wants to make the difference, change. That's something that kind of buy me in. And that's why I decided that, okay, let's try it. But it was a very, very difficult decision. It wasn't that straightforward because I never thought about it.
So tell me more about your family growing up. Whom do you look up to?
Yeah, so I think as every little girl, we look up to our father. So my father was a lawyer by profession. And he was very, particular about getting a very good education. So that's kind of ingrained in me. But at the same time, as a European family, we are pretty liberal, so there is no strict instruction that what you should become. The parents usually just try to guide you and just support you whatever your decision is. So I remember when I was discussing with him of becoming a lawyer, he was very against it because he believed that that was too much of a difficult position for a woman. Right, so my father was still in that kind of space of there's a clear distinction between the role of women and men in the family or in the society, or even certain professions are not good for women. But nevertheless, when I told him that I want to study Chinese, at that time it was in 2004. China was just kind of, it was not that big yet, right? It was kind of rising up. So he thought it was a very clever move, that with Chinese I can make a lot of money. So that's why he supported me at that time. But I have to say, my parents were very supportive whatever I have decided to do. The only thing is that, now when my mom is already alone, my father passed away, she would laugh to, as any Indian mother, to see me married and with kids. But nevertheless, she still supports whatever journey I have taken up.
Adela, we don't embrace change as well. We get very comfortable with our lives. It's very difficult to embrace that change. How were you so self-assured, and how were you so sure about Chezuba that you decided to leave everything else and join an organization based out of India?
I wasn't sure at all. So if you start a business, there is so much uncertainty that you can actually shut up the company any minute, any day, and that that we are pretty on a good spot right now, I have to say. So there is not that threat like every day we might shut up, but at the beginning it's like that. So when I came to India, I kind of embraced this kind of mindset that I will just try, and I will just try to learn anything that I can during the journey. I was not looking at that final destination, as maybe a lot of entrepreneurs would do, but I was looking at it as a learning path. No matter whether we will make it big or we won't make it big, no matter whether the company will last a month or 2 or 3, I was very sure about one thing, that it will be very huge, a huge learning opportunity for me. And I think that was the most important aspect of why I made that huge leap of, leaving my family, my fiance at that time behind, and, friends, and coming to a country that I knew very little about. And the little I knew wasn't very positive, sadly, in Europe. But I think that excitement about being somewhere new and learning new things, that's kind of persuade me that I should take that leap, because you don't get that opportunity every day, right? A friend calling you to set up a venture in a different country, you don't get that every day. So I think we should grab the opportunities if we feel that there is something. And sometimes it's just the gut, right? Sometimes we just rationalize our own decisions later on, but probably there was a gut and there was a trust in the company.
And during this journey, did you ever think about that particular point in life, where you thought you just almost gave up, and you thought that this is maybe not working? I still do go through it, maybe that this is not working out for me. So did you also have that kind of a moment where you almost gave up, and how did you stand back up?
I think, Arushi, not surprisingly, there were many of these kind of moments. And there still will be these kind of moments, because entrepreneurship is extremely hard. It's kind of I didn't marry a man, but I marry a company, and then I have about 15 little kids as the team members. So that's how I perceive it, that, it's extremely hard. And there were many of those kind of moments, when, for example, when the bank account is really low, and there was a moment that the next month we didn't have 4 salaries for next month, right? And how do you communicate to the team that is working so hard and they're so passionate, and you just really want to provide them the salary that they deserve, but you just don't have that money. But there could be a lot of moments that, when there are a lot of things happening within the company, or, let's say an investor backing off after 6-7 months of, negotiating the value and everything, and suddenly he disappears. That makes you feel that, is it really worth it, that stress, sleepless nights and everything. But then, probably what always brought me back was the value that we are creating. Because as I said, I would probably not be an entrepreneur in a business that is manufacturing mobile phones. I don't see the huge value. But because we are creating opportunities for people to make a difference in the world, and I can see, I talk to volunteers, I talk to NGOs, so that give me that kind of boost that, whatever we are doing, even though it's hard and sometimes it feels useless, but when you talk to volunteers who are really happy, and then some of the volunteers say that, they dream came true through volunteering. They could, talk to children from orphanage, and they were so happy about it. Then you feel that, okay, it makes sense. So you should probably, again, go back and huddle more, because there is someone at the other side of the counter who is, getting affected by your work. And that's a great feeling. And the second one is the users, or, the angels and the volunteers that we work with, that kind of always pull me back. And of course, the team, right? You are building a kind of a family. In a startup is always, the relationships between the team members are much closer than in a huge company. And you are creating employment. So I think as a woman, we also have this huge responsibility for other people. And it will just always bring you back to the business, if no matter what is happening, because you feel responsible for all the people that you are creating employment for.
So, Adela, I'm sure, like, you've been working with NGOs. I'm sure there must have been moments wherein, those emotional moments which are very close to your heart, and which is why maybe social work is very important to you. Can you talk about those moments?
See, we are in online volunteering. So when people heard first about that concept, there was a lot of biases about, how couldn't you really feel that you're impacting someone's life if you never meet them, if you never see the children, or other beneficiaries, poor people. Because how we usually imagine volunteering is that, you go to orphanages, you go to elderly homes, you go serve food for the, socially lower classes. But I think the technology kind of showed us that, even the digital connection can make us really, can make goosebumps on our skin when we talk to someone who is really connected. So I think I talked more to volunteers than NGOs, I have to say. But from those NGOs, I talked to an African gentleman who is running NGO in Kenya. And he was connected to another Kenyan who was building a website for him. And when I was talking to both of them, I just realized what a beautiful relationship we have created, because this volunteer, even though they are, at different parts of Kenya, the volunteers are living in more urban area, and the NGO is, of course, serving refugees in remote areas of Kenya. And the volunteer not only built a website for the NGO, but he also paid for the hosting. He also helped to raise awareness about his work in his network and try to raise funds. When I saw the gratitude of the owner of the NGO that he was showing me during our video call, I was really happy. I felt that, wow, this is something amazing that we are creating, because he would never be able to be connected to that volunteer who can provide so much service to him. So that was one of the beautiful moments that I can share. And with volunteers, it's always very refreshing, because you talk to so many young people who are full of passion, full of dreams, and they're very enthusiastic about the work. And they also get connected with the NGOs they work with. And that's what I believe, that, there was a volunteer who was, I think she was creating a video for the NGO, little snippets of, testimonials of the kids from the orphanage. And what happened eventually is that she was getting on a call with the kids from the orphanage on a daily basis. Because the kids really loved talking to her. She was from a different city, different environment. It was very refreshing to them. They can practice their English. So there was something beyond whatever we have, connected them. There is more relationships that are established. And I think that's also a huge part of our work is not only just connect an NGO with a volunteer to get a brochure design done or a website done, but to really, make connections that will last even longer and that will enrich them beyond the scope of the project.
So let's talk about your life in India. What kind of adjustments have you had to make here in India? Sorry.
I think quite a few. As a liberal European, you have to start how you get out on the streets. So you can't wear just anything. So there is the first adjustment. But apart from that, the weather, of course, it is super hot right now in Hyderabad, which I'm kind of handling somehow. But I think the biggest adjustment is to understand, that people are very traditional still, despite, having, mobile phones, metro stations, and these huge, if you go to high-tech city, you feel like you're in the US. But when you talk to people, when you talk to young people especially, I just realized that, they are still in the mindset of their parents. So I also have to kind of adjust it, how I connect with other people and how I communicate. There was a lot, especially in the work. And there is a different work culture, of course. But in terms of my personal life, I feel that, for a single woman in India, the life is very constrained. Right? People are not used to, first of all, for women living alone. So for me, finding an apartment was a huge task. I couldn't just live in any part of the city. And I did live in one part which was not really accepted by the community, right? So that was very uncomfortable because I could feel that people are not accepting you there, even though I haven't done anything, right? So I have to accept whatever is the status quo and, find a way around it and probably meet with people that are on the same page with me and adjust whatever I'm wearing, I'm eating, how I behave. There was a lot of adjustment from my side, for sure.
And your life at Chezuba, the work environment, and without sounding cliched, have you had to face any gender bias? Do you think women have to prove more at work?
Yeah, I think it's true. No matter how cliche it is, it's even in the European context. And I worked with Asians before, and I was in an international school where I could meet, people from different countries. So no matter from which part of the world you are, there is a gender bias. You have to prove more as a female. And especially as a women leader, you are not taken seriously, right, at the beginning until people know you. So the first impression is that, and it's very hard to kind of, blame other people for it, because I think also women perceive other women the same way. So it's not only about men perceiving women as not being serious, but I think it's on our side as well. So I think the work environment was difficult, not only for as a woman, but as a foreign woman and as a, let's say, younger woman. So there are three biases, right? You're too young to lead, to understand. You are from a different cultural background. So what do you know about Indian working culture? How can you set up rules for us if you don't understand us? Right? So I think, but I think there is a kind of a hope, as I see the trend in the world, and also in India. There are so many amazing women that I have met during those 2 years, who are very strong and who are very persistent what they pursue. And I think just more women have to listen to them and to see that, you don't have to sit in the kitchen and listen. There is a lot that you have to offer to the world, and they just need to take that bravery out. Because I think a lot of women just don't even think about it. We have certain patterns from our family, from the schools we were brought up, and then you just go like on a train, right? And you can't switch. But I think the first step is to open the eyes and try to listen, and try to listen also to yourself, right? Do I want to be on that train that everybody is sitting in, or do I want to switch to my own train and live the life the way I want to?
So yeah, I guess you need to be relentless in your pursuit with blinders on, so that you ignore such things. And I've always believed too that women need to first start uplifting other women, and they need to stop judging other women. That's what I say. That was my message on Women's Day as well. And I just want to ask you, Adela, is it unfair? Now you also might be having some women employees. Is it unfair for women to ask for certain privileges at work, considering that they have hordes of other responsibilities to look after? Because when just to quote an example, when I was in my previous organization, I used to have male members coming to me and say, it's such an easy thing for you. You get out of work at 6:30, 7 o'clock sharp, and although the fact was that I used to work from 9 to 7, whereas I would see most of my male colleagues, they would just while their time away, and since they were bachelors, they had nothing else to do but to just stay there in an air-conditioned environment using the company Wi-Fi. So do you really think, is it unfair for women to expect certain privileges at work?
It's not a straightforward answer, I would say. I think the problem is much bigger, because of course, I'm coming from a background where there is a maternity leave for 2 or 3 years for the women to just stay at home. They are getting certain amount of the salary and so on. They are taking care of. There are certain legally binding system where you have to employ the women after she finished the maternity leave, and you can't ask certain questions at the interview. Do you want to get married? What is your marital status? Right. So I'm coming from a background where there is all these little nuances of how do you take care of the gender biases, starting from the interview, and how you take care of the employees. Where it's all kind of legally set. I realized that in India there is nothing like that, and that each company has to set up their own culture. And we had a lot of discussion also in our own company, about adjusting to needs of women, because they have certain needs that men don't have, and especially also in terms of taking care of the family. But I think it's kind of a double-sided sword, because if you give those kind of benefits to women, it needs to be accepted by the whole company, right? Unless there is a consensus around it, there is that the men also accept that, there will be always not a good team spirit in it. So I think it's not about the company of setting certain rules, especially in India. It's about the communication. And I think there needs to be more openness and communication and understanding what exactly the problem is, because employees need to feel treated equally, right? So we had a lot of back and forth discussions about, okay, should female get an extra day off each month from work, right? And we had that kind of policy, but there was a lot of discussion that, well, why men don't, right? And is it really equal, and so on. So I think the discussion is much larger, and we have to understand of how to create the equality first in the family, and then in the corporate world, or in the companies. Because if the inequality is in the family, what can the company do, right? If the husband is not taking care of children, not doing household work, nothing, of course there is a lot of pressure on women. And I think the solution is not to give women that extra day off or different working times and everything. I think the solution is to fix the family first, which might be probably too abrupt for Indian context. I understand that, what is the family structure, and that will take much longer time. But I think we have to go to the root of the problem and not just fix the surface problems.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point that you made there. But then, yeah, I mean, I still do feel that there are certain things that women are inherently better at, and that's why they think that they can get hold of it better than their better half. So I mean, yeah, so that's a very challenging thing, and that's a very debatable topic. So how is the culture at Chezuba?
I think very open. I believe it took us quite some time to get things sorted for everyone, that everyone is happy and productive and feeling content in the company. But I think from the very start we tried to kind of inculcate that kind of culture in the company, that we are a global company. Even though I'm the presently, besides our regional ambassadors that are not in India, I'm the only foreigner in the company. But for example, everybody has to speak English, and only English during the working hours, no matter there is 70 or 80% people could speak Hindi or Telugu, whatever it is. But we try to set up the culture from the very beginning that we are and will be a global company. And there will be a lot of diverse people joining the company. So we have people who just, graduated. They're from very different backgrounds, different states in India. And then we have very senior team members who are kind of already having 20, 30 years of experience. So how do you manage people who have different professional backgrounds and different, habits? Is that you communicate again and again that whatever we are doing, we have to respect the other person or anybody else in the company. So I think that one of the values is that you have to, we have 3 values in the company: impact, intent, and integrity. So that's core values of our company. And that means that, whatever you are doing, you have to know why you are doing it. And there are always options to ask questions. So we're very open to feedback. And I think that's very different from a majority of the Indian big companies. What I have observed when people are joining, they just listen, right? And they don't ask questions. If they have doubts, they will rather ask a colleague, not your boss. So what we are trying to, even when we are hiring people from the very beginning, we as founders, it starts from us as a founders, you can always question us, can always give suggestions, and you can always, no matter what it is, you have to communicate. Because if the communication is not there, we don't know what is happening in the company if we are growing. then it becomes a huge problem, right? I don't want people to fear their managers or, to be not able to say what they think. So I think we are a very transparent company. My co-founder Sukrenda over communicates everything, whatever is happening, and I think that is good. And they're all very open to feedback and communication. That's our core value, because I think that's how we will be able to even scale up and to grow and to have understanding between the diverse team members. So that's what we are encouraging.
Where do you see Chezuba 10 years from now? And where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
It's a very difficult question, but if I will be overly optimistic, I think we'll be the next LinkedIn or Facebook in 10 years. Because what we intend to do is not just online volunteering, but we intend to organize the social sector. That means that we want to bring individuals, nonprofits, governments, corporates all together to create an impact in the world. And for that, we need a platform where everybody can, connect and speak. So I think that's what I would like Chezuba being in 10 years. It's something that, like Facebook or LinkedIn, but it is something linked to an impact, right? If I want to change something in the world or make a difference, then I go to Chezuba.
We wish you the best. And do you have any message for the other womenpreneurs?
Other womenpreneurs, if they are already womenpreneurs, I think they already have enough courage and bravery to step on the journey. I would like to tell them maybe something that what I struggled with, and that is don't be afraid to ask for help. And try to embrace all the aspects of a women entrepreneur or women leader that are maybe perceived not as valuable, but I think that's our core and that's our strength, which is empathy or humility, because I think that's, if we embrace how we are and how we do things, not trying to be men but be ourselves, that's where the success will come. So I think just embrace whatever you have, because if you are already an entrepreneur, capable enough to do things, but don't be afraid to ask for help and surround yourself with the right people.
Thank you, Adela, for your time. Before going, just quickly, I would like you to look